Welcome, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I think we have a lot of people coming from different parts of the world. So it's very nice to see people coming in from Philippines. I can see Nairobi, Zimbabwe, Zambia, Mozambique. Perfect. Liberia. Perfect. So yes, I see Rwanda as well. Thank you everyone for joining. So we are World Academy, and we usually host these webinars for everyone for knowledge sharing. And today we have a very interesting topic about risk-based project planning in uncertain environment. And we have our specialist with us, Dr. Wasike. So he will be giving you an introduction, and then we'll start off with the webinar. We will be taking a short strategic break in the middle. So whenever Dr. Wasiki is ready to give me the floor, we'll take a break. And then for about 5-7 minutes, then we'll start off with the webinar again. And at the end of the session, we will have a photography. Of course, we would request everyone to switch on their camera during that session. And then we'll have a Q&A or question answer session after that. So with that note, I think it's time. So Dr. Wasiki, you may start with the webinar. Thank you, and please introduce yourself to the people over here.
Thank you very much. My name is Dr. Walubengo Wilberforce Wasike. I'm happy to be part of World Academy for Research and Development family. And today I'll be discussing with you risk-based project planning in uncertain environment. And in many organizations, various projects have been designed, have been planned, and a lot of expectations developed. But at the end of the day, this reality does not come to become true because of environmental factors. Today we'll be looking at risk-based planning in a proactive, imperative approach. This terminology, the word imperative or proactive imperative, let us look at it sometimes, is called persuasive imperative. It is a form of command or official instruction which is used to encourage action before a problem occurs. It is commonly used to guide in management, sometimes in management communication, sometimes to provide safety, to provide cushion in a project environment. And when we talk about proactive imperative, we want to define risk-based planning, which is actually a proactive and systematic process of, first of all, identifying the risk. What risks do we have in our project? We must be aware. In procurement, terminologies is used that the buyer must be aware. Kofite empta, the buyer need to be aware. As a project manager, you need to be aware of your environment. You need to be aware of the risks that the project may be facing or possibly may face in the future. And that can be done by proactively and systematically identifying, analyzing, and making a preparation to respond to any potential threats and also respond to opportunities. Because sometimes it's not only a threat that crops up during the project implementation, but sometimes also opportunities crops up. And both the threat and opportunities may crop up in an unplanned manner and cause some interruption in your project. And therefore you need to plan, you need to think about them, you need to plan for them. Risk-based planning is designed to maximize probability of success by anticipating issues before they manifest as an organization crisis. is very, very important. In this era where volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity occurs in our environment, project leaders must navigate unprecedented challenges where inadequate risk management can lead to catastrophic financial loss, reputational damage, and erosion of competitiveness. Because especially profit-making projects, they need to remain competitive in terms of their total cost of ownership, in terms of selling price of their products and services. They need to remain competitive, and they therefore require to practice risk-based planning. When we talk about proactive imperative risk-based planning, it helps us to ensure project success in a VUCA environment. You look at that diagram where we have catastrophic losses and reputation damage on the left side, and we have tangible business value and strategic alignment on the right side. And in the middle, where there is a depression, we have implement risk-based planning. In that depression, a project leader requires to implement risk-based planning to be able to realize profitability in that particular project. Now, when we talk about VUCA, which you can pronounce as VUCA, environment characteristics, it presents, V stands for volatility, which is actually creates an environment that is rapid, unpredictable change, and it creates uncertainty to a project leader to plan and expect what will be happening. Uncertainty stands for lack of predictability. We are working, implementing a project in an environment that you cannot predict what is going to crop up next. Such an environment requires prior planning, prior anticipation. C stands for complexity, multiple interconnected factors creating a web of complications during the project implementation, and either slows down the project or sometimes even result to project closure. And A stands for ambiguity, lack of clarity about meanings. You design and plan for a project in a manner sometimes that you use words that have various meanings, creating ambiguity in project implementation, among others. Let us look at uncertainty and variability that also appears in project environment as a risk. Uncertainty refers to discrete events that may or may not occur. These events must be planned for, irrespective the fact that they may occur or not occur. But whether they may occur or not occur, a good project manager required to have a contingent plan. Just in any case, uncertainty appears. A contingent plan should be in place to mitigate against that particular occurrence. Variability represents constant fluctuation in processes. Many economies, especially in third world countries, they actually keep on fluctuating. You find a product today is selling at this particular price, but tomorrow morning when you wake up, you are told your currency against the dollar have changed, and therefore the price have also equally changed. Risk manifestation refers to risk manifests when there is uncertainty regarding the magnitude of variability, or when actually fluctuations threaten to breach acceptable limits of project health. Because when a project is being designed, it is given some level of parameters that it should not exceed. That boundaries can be interfered with by uncertainty and variability in a project environment. There's various steps that a project manager can follow for risk-based project planning in an environment that is a little bit fluid, an environment that the project manager is not sure of, an environment that is uncertain. The first step a project manager is required to do is to define the project objective and context. This project objective will help the project team to understand exactly what is it that the project intends to achieve. And what is it that when it is being achieved, under what context? And for a project manager to understand clearly and define the project and context, we need to clarify the scope of that particular project. What are the boundaries expected? What are the deliverables? And what are constraints? What are the assumptions within that particular project? And what are the success criteria? Let us talk about, for example, a project we intend to build a 10-story building. And we can clarify the scope in terms of measurement. How many story building are we constructing? What are the deliverables? Maybe we have planned that this particular project, the foundation will be delivered in 2 months. First floor will be delivered in another 1 month. Second floor will be delivered in another month. So within 3 months, the planning and the designing of that particular project expect that both the foundation as a milestone, the first floor and second floor will have been delivered to measure performance of project progress. We also need to understand the constraints and assumptions. For example, a government arches plans to implement a digital health record systems. During context analysis, it identifies unstable internet connectivity in rural areas and strict data protection regulations as key environmental factors. And that a project manager will require now to clearly understand and clarify the scope, what are the expected deliverables, and what are the constraints. For example, the Data Protection Act in Kenya. What are the assumptions and what are the success criteria during the planning stage? And this will help the project manager to actually design the project to achieve the project objectives. The second step is to identify risks early and systematically. Risks can be identified through group work, using brainstorming, where various participants, including stakeholders, they are brought together to brainstorm about various possible risks available within the project environment. Other tools like checklist, SWOT analysis, where the project strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats are analyzed and recorded. Expert judgment, where an informed person is called in to actually analyze the situation and provide his or her opinion, and also lesson learned from previous projects that were implemented in that particular environment. For example, we can look at constructing a new warehouse Identified risks can be delays in material deliveries in that particular environment, fluctuating steel prices, labor shortages, regulatory approval delays. Sometimes you take a project design to be approved by regulators, and it takes months instead of taking weeks or days. These are recorded in a risk register. All these risks, once they are identified, should be recorded in a book called risk register, which should be stored by a risk team in the project. The next step is to analyze and prioritize these risks. We have identified various risks. We have listed them in the risk register book. Now we need to analyze them against probability and the impact using risk matrix. We can use either conduct quantitative analysis or qualitative analysis wherever it is needed. And this analysis will help us to understand the likelihood of a particular risk to occur, so that the project manager is able to plan in advance that the likelihood of this particular risk to occur is 50% or 90% or 80%. Now, what will be probability of the impact that this risk, if it happens, what level of impact, what degree of impact it will cause? Those are the questions that the project manager should ask himself or herself. And therefore, this can be identified by conducting quantitative or qualitative analysis on those listed risks. An example can be in a road construction project, for example. We are planning and designing this road. We need to consider heavy rain and dry season. Proper research should be carried out to understand in this area, this road is taking like, let's say 1,000 kilometers. What are the climate changes that happen alongside this area where the road is being constructed? Which particular months experience high rainfall and which particular month experience dry season? And therefore, the heavy rainfall has high probability and high impact on schedule delays. It should be ranked as high priority risk compared to minor equipment breakdowns. In Kenya, in Nairobi here, we were doing a construction of some particular road, which is actually significant. And I will not mention, because of Data Protection Act, the contractor from a foreign environment, foreign country. They expected rain periods to come in like 4 months ahead. And they mitigated against this rain period by working during the dry season. And they decided that they will have a team with engineers, project managers, working from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And a new team picks up from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. in the morning. And they will flatten the road with light system, so that the team that are working at night, they're just working like as if it is daytime. And they were able to achieve the period of the project objectives within a shorter period of time compared the delays that will have caused by the rain season. The next step is to assess uncertainty scenarios. You want to look into certain scenarios. Suppose this rain doesn't rain, or suppose it rains and it is not heavy rain. Or suppose it rains and it rains triple heavy than what was expected or what has been happening in such a kind of a season. It once happened in my country where it rained and flattened cities and even upcountry environment. Rivers were flattened, and we were told by the government that that is El Nino. They gave it its own characteristics. Suppose El Nino happens, you need to assess uncertainty scenarios by developing best case, worst case, and most likely scenarios. For example, for an ICT startup launching a new mobile app, the best case will be rapid user adoption within 3 months. But in any case, within 3 months, there is no rapid user adoption. We want now to look at the option of the most likely, that moderate growth over 6 months or 12 months of the app that was designed. But in a worst case scenario, regulatory restrictions delay the launch for a year. As a code manager, we need to assess uncertainty scenarios and create some best case scenario, worst case scenario, and most likely scenario. The next step will be to develop risk response strategies. You have identified and listed all the risks in the risk register book. You have allocated them unique numbers. Let's call them risk IDs. You have even allocated them the risk owners so that they take responsibility and charge, like the risk champion of every risk. You have analyzed the risks, come up with the scenarios, and you have even analyzed the impact of that particular risk. You need to develop risk response strategies. Just in any case this risk happens, it occurs. What response the project is prepared to develop so that they can handle the occurrence of that particular risk and mitigate against the negative impact or positive impact the risk might cause to the project. I use the word positive purposefully because sometimes an opportunity that is not planned for can crop up. And when it crops up, it actually slows down or interferes with the project implementation. So among the main mitigation methods, the project manager can decide to avoid the risk, to mitigate, transfer, or accept the risk. For example, in an agricultural export project, the risk will be crop failure due to drought. And the project manager may prepare a response by mitigation, invest in irrigation systems. Just in any case, in the worst scenario, that the drought was the worst of the worst, the project has irrigation system to water the crops so that they grow normally. Alternatively,
have not come to completion.
Let us mute. We are in class. Let us mute. Alternatively, the project manager can purchase agricultural insurance so that it cushions the project manager from any practical possible loss in case of drought. In case of not only even drought, let's assume there was no drought, but insects came and ate the crop. So the project manager will have transferred the actual risk to an insurance firm. The next step is to integrate risk response into the project plan. When you are planning and identifying as a project manager various risks that are possible, or possible risks that may happen during the project implementation, and the possible responses, they need to be married into the plan of the project so that the project manager is able to adjust on time, to adjust on cost and resources allocation to prepare to mitigate against the risks. For example, let us use a construction firm at 15% contingent budget and insert time buffers into the schedule to accommodate possible supply chain disruptions. The word buffer stands for safety. It is commonly used in supply chain parameters as buffer stock or safety stock when the lead time or when the reorder level have reached and have triggered the procurement processes in a supply chain or in stores, then the stock that is remaining behind to cushion the operation continuity is called buffer stock or is called safety stock. There is Pennant raising your hand. Is there a chance you cannot town because of time? You cannot town your question so that we there is time that is coming for questions and answers, and I will handle all of them at the same time so that you enable me to actually deliver this content within stipulated time. The next step is to establish risk governance and monitoring mechanism. There is one step is to identify, or even the manager just being aware that there are risks expected within the project. But the most important parameters or step to take is to put in place a governance process that after identifying, therefore, the risk, what next? Governance process should be able to guide, to assign risk owners, define reporting channels, and monitor early warning indicators within the project. For example, in a donor-funded NGO project, each major risk is assigned to a team lead. Monthly review meetings are scheduled to track changes in funding conditions or political environment. Another step that we need to appreciate in project management in such a situation is communicate risks transparently. This ensures stakeholders understand the risks exposure and mitigation plans. Transparently, openly is very important because when you come up with the risk register, risk mitigation strategies, and maybe you communicate them in a manner that does not pass exact message, it is in itself a risk factor. Just like when you are making a decision as a project manager using inaccurate data, it is a risk in itself. For example, this ensures stakeholders understand risk exposure and mitigation plans. And an example we can use in these parameters is during the implementation of account water project, the project manager presents quarterly risk reports to the account assembly and donors to maintain accountability and manage expectations from stakeholders. The next step for project manager is continuous review and adaptation. We learned the lessons during COVID-19 pandemic. Many infrastructures project revised schedules, introduced remote coordination tools, and renegotiated supplier contracts due to movement restrictions. And therefore, the project needs to continuously review and adopt and update the risk register and revise plans as circumstances changes. You also need to have professional standard supporting risk-based planning. Risk-based planning project is emphasized in Project Management Institute guidelines. It is also emphasized as a guide to the Project Management Board of Knowledge and also International Organization for Standardization, ISO 31000 Risk Management Framework. I want to go through this case study, and after this case study, I will request for a health break. Let's analyze this particular situation. The project aimed to design, let me start from somewhere else. Let me start from the background. A case study, the project planning in a high risk and changing environment. The background is the projects planned in a highly uncertain environment must integrate strong risk management because requirements, technology, and external conditions may change during implementation. One classic example is the Geneva International Airport Baggage System project. Let's look at the situation. The project aimed to design an automated package handling system to support a new international airport. At the planning stage, the project operated in a very high technological, financial, and operational risk environment because, number one, the technology was largely untested on a large scale. Maybe it was just done on a pilot scale, on a small scale, and maybe it was successful on a small scale, but it was not largely tested on a large scale. The stakeholders' expectations were high. The design requirements were repeatedly changing because of this environment circumstances that was a little bit fluid. Integration of software and mechanical systems was a little bit complex. Challenges in the changing environment, frequent design modifications disrupted implementation schedules, and milestones were not achieved on time because there were frequent design modifications. Software reliability problems caused system failures during the testings. Cost escalation occurred due to technical adjustments, and condition difficulties existed between engineers, airport authorities, and contractors. Look at that scenario. Look at that situation. Pick out that magnificent project that is being conditioned by uncertain project environments. It ended up resulting to the systems was eventually scaled back after major delays and budget overruns. And these are outcomes and lessons that we can learn from this particular case study. The airport opened without fully deploying the automated systems. What are the key lessons that we can learn from this case study? In a high-risk and dynamic project environment, planners should adopt a continuous risk assessment. And it will help the project manager to identify possible risks in advance and plan for those particular risks. And if possible, even mitigate against the risks. They should also adopt flexible and adaptive project management approaches. During COVID-19, projects that were static, they closed down, and some of them have never even opened up to date. But COVID-19 helped the consultants like myself to understand that even a strategic plan, 5-year strategic plan, 10-year project strategic plan should not be static, but should be flexible enough to accommodate changing environment, changes that crops up in a project. Stakeholder engagement during design process is very, very important. They own the design. They are resourceful in some data that can help make right decision and redesign the project to be flexible and adopt the project environment. And that information can be achieved by engaging stakeholders during the planning stage and designing stage, and also the implementation stage of a project. From this, we also learned that technology feasibility testing before full-scale implementation is paramount. You have to remember that this project tested the software or the technology at a small scale and implemented that technology on large scale, and it did not work. This case demonstrates that ignoring environmental uncertainty during planning can lead to significant project failure or project redesign. And when you are redesigning the project, there is the cost of time overrun, and there is the cost overrun in itself, and there is change in terms of schedule of the project and delayed project expectation from stakeholders. Thank you very much. I'll request for a health break if allowed.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Actually, it was very interesting to hear what's going on regarding how to handle high-risk projects and everything. So I can request you just to stop sharing the screen so that I can just share my screen for a while, and then get back to you to share your screen. Okay? Great, great, super. Just a moment. Yeah. So in this strategic break, I'd just like to introduce ourselves. I know many of us have already joined previously in our webinars, but those who haven't joined, for them, I'm just going to give you an introduction of World Academy. So we are World Academy for Research and Development, and we are a UK-based organization. We have the learners provider. As you can see on the screen, this is what we have as a serial number. We are ISO certified, 21,001, 17,024, 30,414, and 40,108. Well, the global impact that World Academy has is we have a presence in 65 countries at the moment, offering about 200 plus programs, both academic and certified programs. We've so far trained about 30,000 plus professionals across these countries, and we have a pool of 132 instructors across 14 countries. 30% of our alumni are C-suite role holders in major organizations, and about 95% is the completion rate in the first attempts, whoever does the programs through us. Now, why World Academy would be the right choice to be your training partner is because we are the large professional certification institution in UK. Our credentials are globally accepted. We have an affordable fee, of course, provided that we offer flexible payment plans. There's a wide range of programs covering HR, project management, supply chain, accounting, finance, environment, health and safety, auditing, soft skills, etc. If I can categorize, it's like 150 courses are for certified programs, 30 plus master's level programs, 40 plus diploma level programs. We have a very user-friendly learning management system like whoever is our participants, can easily use the learning management system or the study portal, which is very easy to use to study by yourself, get the materials, etc. And we also offer credential badges, like these are offered through credly.com. It's a renowned concern of Pearson Education. So we do offer these credentials to that platform. Now, our global affiliations, well, we are actually an accredited institute by NQual, an Ofqual regulated awarding body based in UK, an accredited institute by the National CPD Certification UK, accredited institute by National Project Management Academy of United Kingdom. We are also an approved center of Cambridge Academy of Professionals, Profqual UK, and Board of HR Certifications UK. We are a very proud provider of HRCI, SHRM, and ATD. Those who are in the HR field know very well about these institutions. And a couple of our programs are academically aligned with SHRM. And we also partner with the KPI, Institute of KPI Specialists, and Academy of Business English and Communication. Now, the reason we are we have a mission in 2030 is to become the #1 professional certification institute and to have a presence over 100 countries. So the way we are proceeding, I hope we will be reaching our goal before 2030. So recently we did a couple of graduation ceremony in Kenya. This is a glimpse of it. It was related to all the certification programs and everything, which was followed by a Global Professional Summit 2025. We also had a graduation ceremony held in Uganda. It was in the midst of the year 2025. These are some of the highlights, and which was also followed by a summit, which was called International People's Summit 2025. Finally, we also conducted a graduation ceremony in Tanzania. You can see on the screen some moments that has been captured. And also there was a summit. It was called Global Professional Summit 2025. We have a couple of live sessions coming this March. If anybody's interested, or if you think that any of your friends or colleagues may be benefit from these, we have some programs, live sessions, like the Certified Internal IT Auditor, which starts on 1st of March. The CRMES, or Certified Result-Based Monitoring and Evaluation Specialist, which starts on the 7th of March. We also have a diploma in environment, health, and safety. 8th of March is when it's going to initiate. We have certified HR generalist. It's on the 13th of March. And we also have a certified corporate financial analyst. It's going to start on the 14th of March. And on the 15th of March, we have certified business and corporate accounting. So if anybody is interested, you can, of course, share with your colleagues, friends. With that note, I would not take any more time, and I'll give the platform to our respected trainer for today's session. Sir, you can actually share your screen again.
Thank you for that wonderful presentation, and thank you for giving me an opportunity to rest for those few minutes.
Great. Yeah, we can see your screen, sir.
Thank you very much.
Perfect.
We now want to look at governance of uncertainty. Governance of uncertainty refers to that particular system the project has put in place to take care to administer and manage uncertainty environment the project faces as it is being implemented. And this governance of uncertainty refers to the systems that are put in place of policies structures, what are communication structures. If you have identified a possible risk, how are you escalating it? What are structures available to escalate the information about a possible risk to reach a decision maker, like a project manager? The process that communication will go through, the culture of the project, how will the stakeholders react on that particular information, accountability mechanisms in place through which an organization directs and controls how risks are identified, how risks are assessed, how risks are managed, how risks are monitored, and how risks are reported in alignment with its strategic objective and also risk appetite. Because every project is exposed to various risks. Just identifying these risks, listing these risks in risk register book, and developing mitigation mechanism is not enough. The whole concept on how the risk processes are going to be governed by the project matters a lot, because you might be even having the right mitigation approach, the right strategy, but the way you are going to administer that strategy as a project manager is going to determine the success mitigation process or even the failure of mitigation process. You might have even a contingent plan, but how you are going to govern the process of implementing the contingent plan matters a lot, determines the success or the failure of that particular mitigation. Now, the governance of uncertainty environment is not a one-person show. It requires a collaborative engine of discovery. It is a team spirit. Let's call it a team sport. If you are playing football, in whichever team that it is, Kenyan Data Protection Act may not allow me to mention names here. But you have to remember a team spirit. When you are playing football, if the team wins, entire person celebrates. Even the cheering squad, they want to identify themselves with the win. Sometimes when the team does not win, blame games arises in that particular team. The defenders blames the midfielders. The strikers blame the midfielders want to blame the strikers that you are supposed to score, you never scored. The entire team want to blame the goalkeeper. And therefore, to avoid that kind of scenario, the project must come up with governance of uncertainty, so that if the team loses, we have lost. If the team wins, we have won. We are all one in this. And therefore, risk identification is not a one-time event, but a systematic, interactive activity requiring collaborative inquiry by the team. By the team. Because a single individual cannot possess the breadth of foresight required. Identification process of risks in an project environment requires diverse stakeholders and subject matter experts to surface hidden vulnerabilities in project environment. Let us look at the approach. That governance can be either proactive or reactive. A proactive governance of uncertainty requires the project team to understand in advance the project environment, identify possible risks from that particular project environment, and list them in risk register book, and now develop mitigation strategies on how you are going to deal with them. Reactive approach is instant solution for a problem that is cropping up against the project that you never planned for. Let us look at 5 key methodologies for risk identification. You can identify risk through brainstorming, using cross-function workshops, synectics principle to stimulate creative thinking, and benefit can uncover interdisciplinary risk missed by siloed specialists. You can use SWOT or pestle analysis to scan the environment, both internal and external environment of the project. And you can also use television technique, where you employ a panel of experts responding to anonymous questionnaires across several rounds, refining views without social pressure of group thinking. You can also identify risks through root cause analysis using tools like 5 Whys, Ishikawa fishbone diagram to identify true sources rather than symptoms. And this can help to prevent problem reoccurrence in the project. You can also employ assumption and constraint analysis, where you systematically test beliefs that the project plan is built upon. If an assumption is found false or highly uncertain, it is reclassified as a risk and managed accordingly. Once the risks has been identified in the project environment, we can categorize these risks as the technical risks, considering that technical risks can be risks originating or affecting the quality parameters, planning, or technology requirements. We can also look at these risks as management risks. Is there a disconnect in management planning? Is there a disconnect in communication? Because miscommunication itself amounts to a project risk. Or management in terms of resources availability. If a management wakes up in the morning and make a decision to cut down the budget, it will affect the project implementation. If you are developing a technical project or implementing a technical project and you lose a key personnel mid-project, or you do not have skilled labor that are enough to implement the project, it's a risk on itself. We have organizational risks that are maybe funding in nature or dependencies, where certain budget cuts or shifts in corporate priorities impacting resource availability, or delays in a related project impacting the critical path of the current initiatives. For example, if you scheduled a project, a 10-story building, and there is a delay in supply of important materials like cement, it will cause delay to completion of the foundation of that particular building, eventually it will cause delay to other floors, the construction of other floors like first floor, second floor, third floor. Those are recognizations because of dependencies. There are some factors. Risks can be grouped as external risks beyond your control, project manager's control, because there are risks being generated by external stakeholders. Let's talk about the risks that originate from supply chain management. The behavior of the supplier that was identified to supply sandy to the site. Let us look at risk register, under risk breakdown structure and register. The risk register is a living repository that serves as the central hub for risk tracking throughout the project lifecycle, not a static document. We no longer even produce 5-year static project strategic plan, but we produce 5-year flexible project strategic plan that allows accommodates changes. And therefore, in the risk register, there are essential components like unique identifier per each risk that is identified and listed in the risk register. Potential causes, we need to identify what are potential causes of this particular identified risk. Detailed description, the risk should be described well so that even a third party reading about the risk in the risk register should be able to understand the risk without asking questions. And we also, in the risk register, we should be able to indicate what are the possible trigger events, which signals that a risk is about to manifest. Early warnings, indicators that activate response plans should be put in place and are recorded in a risk register book of the project. You need to note that risk breakdown ensures that technical, management, organizational, and external risks are all given equal considerations, preventing blind spots in risk identification process in a project. There are various challenges that a project manager can face in managing the risks of the project. Number one is inadequate risk identification. Failure to detect emerging or hidden risks, over-reliance on past experience in a dynamic environment. Past experience may not work. I read another book that said, if you used a particular method and you are successful in the last 10 or 15 years, if you repeat the same method today, you may not be successful as you were in the last 15 or 10 years because the environment have changed. The circumstances have changed. Poor risk culture. If the project manager has not cultivated risk culture sensitive, it may have a problem. Viewing risk management as compliance exercise, lack of openness in reporting risks, and leadership not prioritizing risk discussion that results to poor risk culture. Inaccurate risk assessment, that you are making a decision which is subjective probability and impact ratings. Lack of reliable data, bias in risk estimation can also become a challenge. Resource constraints, when the project is not given enough resource to deal with possible risks, it becomes a problem. And the resource constraints can appear in form of limited budget, inadequate skilled personnel, and competing priorities of the project. Dynamic and uncertain environment also is a challenge, where rapid technological changes, regulatory change, where there are laws of a country where the project is being implemented have changed, or the policy shift, market changes in the market, weak risk monitoring and control parameters in a project, that is irregular risk reviews, failure to update risk registers, and poor communication of risk status can also become a challenge. Integration gaps, where risk management not embedded in planning and decision making, or disconnect between strategic and operational risks, also is a challenge to project managers. Stakeholders resistance, where proper stakeholder management is not done in a project, the project may face stakeholder resistance, and stakeholder resistance is actually a risk by itself, because it can create conflict, and poor communication can result, and also cause delay in project implementation. There are 9-dimensional parameters that we need to look at when we are actually assessing and prioritizing risks. We need to look at the urgency. Is this risk urgent, or it can be postponed? Proximity to happening, the window of time before risk might impact project objective. Dormancy is the period that may elapse after a risk occurs before its impact is discovered. Manageability is the risk managed. Can it be managed? Controllability, can the risk be controlled? Detectability, can the risk be detected by the stakeholders? Connectivity, the interconnectivities of risks with other individual projects and portfolio. They also need to be looked at. Strategic impact. What is the strategic impact of this particular risk? Should be given priority. And equity, the perceived importance of a risk by the stakeholders. Strategic advantage parameters like dormancy and connectivity reveal hidden timing and relationship that the traditional matrices could not reveal, or they missed. Last but not least is qualitative and quantitative comparison when you are analyzing risks, where you look at the primary call method, input data, typical output, and typical usage. You compare them between qualitative and quantitative approaches of analysis. Response risks strategies and schedule risks, which these are threats and opportunities that we want to look at, plus the geometry of schedule uncertainty, where strategies of negative risks, that are threats, you can avoid that. You can avoid that project and stop the project at once, or plan to stop the project. You can transfer the risks to the insurance, or you can mitigate the risk by taking proactive steps to reduce the probability or impact of risk, or you can accept the risk and live with it. We have conditions that people are told in hospitals that you can live with this risk and you can just manage it as you live your normal life. And therefore, acceptance is also a normal parameters of project managers. But strategies for positive risks, that's opportunities, you need to exploit and take advantage of it. You need to enhance, increase the probability and the impact of opportunity by strengthening its key drivers. You need to share, partnering with that party better equipped to capture the opportunity for project benefit. And you also need to accept being prepared to take advantage of the opportunity if it arises without pursuing it. Risk schedules, there are common causes of risk, risk scheduling risks. You can reschedule the risk if inaccurate time estimates or scope changes or resources shortages or supplier delays. These are risks, causes of different risks, and also regulatory approvals. These are common risks in a project. Inaccurate time estimates, scope changes, resource shortages, supplier delays, and regulatory approvals. These risks have impact. The impact is that they cause project delays, they cause increase in cost, or that what we call cost overrun, and can also contract penalties and also stakeholder dissatisfaction. There are various mitigation for these particular risks. You develop realistic schedules to avoid time estimates that are wrong, include time buffers or safety buffers like contingent reserves, and you use critical path method analysis. You also need to monitor progress using milestone and key performance indicators. For example, when you are talking about the road construction project is delayed due to a prolonged heavy rain, extending completion by 3 months and increasing project costs. Thank you, and God bless you. It's time for questions and clarifications.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Wasike. It was a very nice and interesting insight. I'm sure those who ever have came into this today's session, sure they're going to take away many things. So before we take any questions, I would like to request everyone to switch on their camera for a couple of minutes, and then we'll take a snap so that we can remember. Yeah, please switch on your cameras, please. We'll take a quick snapshot. Mr. Nazmul will be taking the snaps. Mr. Nazmul, can you hear me?
Yes, I am. I'm
Okay,
waiting for
all
all
right.
participants.
Yeah, please switch on your camera. So we'll take a quick snap.
Yes, all are
And
requested to.
when it's done, then we will actually start off with the Q&A session.
Sure.
We're not able to see the camera. I'm trying to look it.
Yes, thank you everyone to
All
switching on
right.
your camera. Yes.
So we can start off with the Q&A session. So I have some couple of questions I've picked from the chat box. And I would like to first take Mr. Martin's question. Yes, Leroy, we'll take your questions. You can type your questions in the chat box. That's going to be all right. So regarding the first question, can you please mute yourself so that we can have, yeah, please. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So, Dr. Wasike, the first question that actually came with a compliment. It was a very nice presentation. But the question was, how can you distinguish between project risk, which will appear in the risk register, and the ones to appear in the project issue log?
Repeat the question.
How can you distinguish between project risk, which will appear in the risk register, and the ones that to appear in the project issue log?
And project issue log.
Yeah.
That's a very good question. When you look at how projects are designed, project issue log always records down current problems that has already occurred, while risk register is a record of potential future events that may affect the project. But issue risks that are registered in project issue log, it registers what have already been done, what has already occurred. Is that clear?
Yeah, I hope.
That's the main difference. One is a record of the future potential occurrence, and another one is a record of already the past events that occurred and they were managed in a project.
Super, super. I hope that answers the question. Going on to the next question, it's a bit long question. It was set by Jitonga, if I'm not pronouncing your name wrong. It says, I saw a section in your slide where you mentioned AI. AI predictive models rely heavily on historical project data to forecast risk. However, uncertain environment often introduce unprecedented challenges that the data hasn't seen before. How can project managers best balance AI-driven risks assessment with human intuitions to ensure we aren't blindsided by new or unexpected risk?
Thank you very much. AI is playing an important role today in project management. But AI alone is not enough for effective project management. It requires an interface with the human role. And as the person who asked that question actually correctly indicates, AI intends to depend on existing data to make decisions, but it also requires a supplement from a project manager brain. You have to remember that when you are using computer tools, what we used to say, garbage in, garbage out, they will only use information that you have put in. That ability to resonate and analyze depends on the data that you have keyed in. And therefore, human intervention in project management needs to be integrated with AI for synergies and project benefits. Thank you.
All right, great. I don't want to take too much of time. So I'll take probably another question and I hope we can conclude the session. So the last question I would like to take is from Gerald. Sorry. What is the best way to handle risk assessment? I know it's a very broad question. So you need to unmute. So you have
repeat the question.
The question is, what is the best way to handle risk assessment?
Okay, that is a very, very good question. And I had explained about how to deal with these risks. First of all, best way to deal with risk assessment, you must have enough resources. You must plan for it. You must budget for it. And then you must approach it using a team work, not an individual expert. I am an expert in project managers, but I also keep on learning and updating my knowledge from other experts. They have practiced projects in different project environment, and they have different lessons learned, and they have different exposure. And I keep on learning and updating my knowledge from my other peer colleagues. And therefore, teamwork is an important parameter that you should not ignore in project management assessment. You need to identify risks early enough, and not just early enough, but also comprehensively. You doesn't not just identify, you also need to proactively analyze the risks and assess the probability and the impact of these risks, and be able to actually prioritize the risks where we call risk ranking. When you put risk with higher probability of occurrence, you put it number one. And then higher second probability occurrence, you put number two. You also go to another column and check the impact. The risk might be having higher probability of occurrence, but with low impact. And therefore, the project manager should be able to make a decision from the risk register based on the parameters of higher probability of occurrence, higher impact, among others. Thank you.
Thank you. So I have a couple of other questions as well. You know, what I'm going to do is I will put up these questions under the video that is being posted on our YouTube channel. Maybe you, Mr. Wasike can reply to them. That way we can actually ensure that everybody's responded. So I hope it's not going to be a problem. I am recording all the questions that are in the chat box. Thank you very much. I hope you all have completed the registration link that was shared by Mr. Nazmur for the e-certificate, and we will be having more. We will be having more webinars in coming months as well. We usually take in different areas, subject areas. So hopefully, we'll be seeing you. Be tuned with us. I would especially thank our trainer. He shared a lot with us today regarding project risk and how to handle it. So thank you very much, Mr. Wasike, for giving us the opportunity to share insights. It was pleasant having you in this webinar. And a special thanks to the people who have joined today's session. It was wonderful. Your questions were remarkable. And definitely we will have this conversation under the video so that we'll continue more and share more knowledge with everyone. Even if it is your question, it should be very useful for others as well. So with that note, we'd like to conclude the session. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you once again, Mr. Wasike, for conducting the session. And Mr. Nazmul, thank you very much for hosting.